Welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. My name is Audrey Monkey, and I am your host. For more than 3 decades, I've been a summer camp director, and I've had the privilege of working with thousands of children, teenagers, young adult counselors, and parents. I really enjoy sharing stories, tips, and ideas to help others who care about young people raise a generation of kind, self-reliant, optimistic kids who become thriving adults. If you're interested in summer camp, parenting, or happiness, you've come to the right place. In episode 45, I'm chatting with Ana Homayoun, author of Social Media Wellness, Helping Tweens and Teens Thrive in an Unbalanced Digital World. Enjoy this episode. Well, I'm so excited to have Ana Homayoun on the podcast today. She is the founder of Green Ivy Consulting, as well as the author of Social Media Wellness and several other books. So welcome, Ana.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
So can you just tell me a little bit, first of all, about Green Ivy and the work you're doing there? Because I read about it a lot in Social Media Wellness. And then, of course, now I'm actually hiring you to work with my son because I thought your services sounds great. So tell about how you started that and what you do at Green Ivy.
Sure. So about 17 years ago, I started working with middle school and high school students on organization, time management, executive functioning skills, and really this concept of how do we help kids find their sense of purpose early and promote overall wellness. And what's really interesting is the first students that I worked with are now in their late 20s, early 30s. And many of them say they still use the stuff they learned in the office in their jobs today. And they're doing some really amazing things. So what we do in the office is we help students with basic organization, time management, but it's all about helping them figure out what their own goals are and working backwards to figure out what are the daily habits they need to do in order to achieve those goals. So, students meet with us on a weekly basis, and then we also help a lot with the college admissions process in a way that, again, allows each student to develop what their own set of values are, what their own interests are, and put their own story together and their own narrative in a way that's really powerful. It's a really empowering experience rather than stressful. And one of the things that I think is really positive about our work in general and around the college application process is all of our students who work with us on the application process are generally done by the first week of December with everything, and everything is submitted. And if for any parent who's gone through the application process, they know that there's always a couple stragglers on December 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, trying to figure things out, or even in February, depending on deadlines. And so our process is all about helping kids organize things so they only do 2 to 4 hours of work on their application and have 2 or 3 tasks per week. And then they're done because we help them break it out. And that's a lot of our work. It's really helping students manage things in a way that maximizes their sleep, maximizes their wellness, and maximizes their ability to have free time to figure out what they like to do. So a lot of times, many kids feel overwhelmed and exhausted, so they can't really spend time on their hobbies, their interests, extracurricular activities or things they might want to explore. And so that's really the cornerstone of our work.
Yeah, that's what really struck me about when I was reading your book. And of course, now I've subscribed to your weekly email, which is so good. And you always link to such great, articles about different things that are going on. And I've just been so inspired because I just think I'm not sure if other college counseling type places, you're so much more than that is what you're doing there. It's whole child work. You're helping them with things, like you said, that's going to help them well into adulthood, which I just love that work. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, gosh, how many adults could use your services too?
Well, that's what's really interesting. So my second book, The Myth of the Perfect Girl, a lot of women read that book for their daughters and came up to me and said, I read it for my daughters, but I saw myself in it. And it was really in some ways uncomfortable because, dealing with some of these issues around perfectionism and comparison culture and competition is really why I wrote the book. It's and my books and my work, it's really stepping back and helping you figure out what is your own set of values and your own set of interests, and how does that blend into your daily life and work? How do you find a sense of purpose, or how do you have purpose with your work in a way that's meaningful and service-oriented for others as well as yourself? And so you're right. Many of the kids, one of my favorite stories is one of my students who is now 27. She's in a master's program at NYU, but when she was in high school, she wrote about how she loved dance and how her dream was to be a rockette. And she moved to New York, and she is now a dance journalist. She's been on national performance tours. And so she really did find her passion, and she went for undergrad to the Gallatin School at NYU, where you get to design your own major. And so she embodies what we talk about, right? She said, I still remember writing my personal statement and how powerful it was to me, because I was really saying, this is who I want to be. This is what I want to do. These are my interests. And now she is a writer, and she does, she's worked for the Bob Fosse estate and done a bunch of things that are really dance related, as well as being a dancer in New York. So for me, it's very inspiring. My students are very inspiring because they're really following what their personal interests are, and they're also varied, right? It's so, another one of my students worked for Mercy Housing in San Francisco, and I just found out he got into business school, and the idea of, real estate or housing that is affordable was just a turning point for him in understanding what people are going through outside of, the environment in which he grew up. So that's really, you're right. It's much more than help you get into college or help you even get through high school or middle school. It's much more about, asking questions that we don't ask kids early enough. And if we did, it might help them sort of navigate some of the tough parts of being a tween or teen in the U.S. today.
Absolutely. It's funny. Well, because my background's summer camp, and I work with all these kids at camp. And one of the big things that we do at camp is just giving the kids time for reflection. They're unplugged for a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. And many of them do kind of come to some great realizations, like things that they want to try differently at home, or sports that they're really no longer as into and want to switch up. And, just like they'll come to these changes. And even the college students who work for us will often decide to change their major. They'll come and they're like, what? Now that I've been working with kids, I think I want to be a teacher, or I think I want to get into counseling, or, it's really interesting to see how just when you take people out of their day-to-day life, and whether it's going into see someone in your office or coming to camp, and you just give kids a little bit of time to reflect and talk, and you ask them questions, and you hear their stories, and you hear in their voice what they get most excited about, you start finding those little clues to, what's going to fulfill this person the most. And I think you're right. Life and culture are not allowing for that slowing down, reflecting. Everyone just kind of thinks that they're kid and they just have to be on this one track, the same as everybody else. And we all know that that's, when you look at adults, that's not true at all. We're all so different and have followed different paths and ended up different places. And really, the people who are most happy are the people doing the thing that they really enjoy and really love doing.
Well, and I've always been a huge supporter of camp. So I don't know how much you know, but I actually this morning was just doing a webinar for camp professionals.
Beautiful.
So I do presentations and professional development for camp directors and administrators, because I feel like camp is the big place where kids and adults have that reflective opportunity. And we, in our office, have the spirit of camp in terms of, this opportunity for reflection, this opportunity to try new interests, take healthy risks, and all of those things. And it comes from me. I volunteered well into my 20s as a camp counselor at overnight camp. So I'm a big proponent of the camp experience for exactly the reason you talk about. It's that, and some of my, my best staff members, quite frankly, there's two things I look for. Were you a camp counselor? Were you a resident advisor in college? And those two things sort of lend themselves to really loving this work. And so that's really important to me as well, that people have those people skills and this genuine joy and interest for working with others and working with young people. So yeah, I love it.
That's so great. And I love that you recognize the value of being a camp counselor as a summer job experience, because a lot of people, like a lot of parents especially, think their kid needs to have an internship with some big corporation during the summer, when working at summer camp, the leadership skills, the bonding with the other people, that reflection time, there is nothing that a kid could do during the summer of college that is a better experience for growth and leadership skills and communication. It's so much living with these other people, learning to work, partnering with these other people. It is remarkable. We've written a lot about that and shared, because we really want people to know. The whole camp industry is trying to get this word out that, hey, you know what, this opportunity. And I love that you, when you're hiring people, you see that as a huge asset. And we're with you, the RA thing. My daughter was an RA. Being an RA, which is, providing leadership and guidance and counseling to students, sometimes not even that much younger than you, in a dorm, who are some of them away from home for the first time, is very much like being a camp counselor and that same kind of thing. And it's a huge service, kind of people-focused job that will for sure lend yourself to being a better manager, people person in whatever job you do later. So that's so great that you look for that in your own staff, the camp counselor and the RA experience, because we're like that too at camp. We love people who've been RAs or day camp counselors or anything where they've really shown that they like that kind of, intense work with kids.
The other thing that sort of lends itself, and I've seen that same issue actually about, parents being so concerned and my kids should have this like high pressure internship or like with a big name corporation. And I always actually say, and I know this, and I've now done this for 17 years, is I make kids get jobs in some form of service, whether that's food service or retail, or again, the camp counselor, there's a thread between that's all very even, and it's thinking on your feet. And being able to work with the public, whether that's in a camp setting where you're working with essentially kids who come from all over or very different backgrounds, or all, come from different places, or, you're working with generally the public in any shape or form. And so we have found, that's the number one thing that I think is a weakness for a lot of students coming out of college, is this misbelief that you should be working in internships where often they don't have a lot for you to do. So you're just sitting at a desk and you're not really interacting. Versus if you're in a summer camp, you have got to be on, and you're working with kids, and you're negotiating, and you're collaborating, and you're communicating, and you're being creative. You're coming up with fun, different activities. So you and I are on the same page about the value of being a camp counselor, and we didn't even talk about it before this podcast. So I
know. Well, I knew that this is why I wanted to talk to you for so long, so then I just want to talk for a few minutes, because what I really want my listeners to do, besides the other, tell me the name of the book about girls, because I want to get that one. I haven't read that one yet. Girl Perfect, is that what
it's called? Yeah. So that was my second book. It's called The Myth of the Perfect Girl, and it's all about helping our daughters find authentic success in school and life. That's the subtitle. And then my first book was actually called That Crumpled Paper Was Due Last Week, Helping Disorganized and Distracted Boys Succeed in School and Life. And that one still sells a lot of copies over the years. It's been out for now, I think 8 years, but I joke that there's a whole new generation of middle school moms that have just discovered the book.
Right.
And so it's true. It's literally I was just in Memphis talking to a bunch of 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade moms of boys. But so my latest book is called Social Media Wellness, and it's all about navigating the new world and the new digital age. And it came out of my work with students. So those are the 3 books.
Yeah. Well, so that's the one that I have read. I'm definitely going to add your other 2 to my library, because I need them both, and for my work and for everything. But the Social Media Wellness book, so I picked it up because, one of the things that we're really researching and seeing a lot at camp is the benefits of taking some screen-free time, being unplugged, being in nature, being just working on your face-to-face skills. That's a big focus of our program. Is just like the friendship stuff, and focusing on the things that sometimes get set us during the rest of the year. They're maybe so focused on academics or their sports or their video or whatever that really sometimes that goes missing. There's a big lack. So we've been really focused on that. So of course, anytime a book comes out like Devorah Heitner's Screenwise or your book, I pick it up, I read it because as a resource for my families. And the one thing I have to say about your book is I picked it up and I read it And it was about so much more than social media, just like your Green Ivy consulting is about so much more than college counseling. You really talk about so many fundamental things about like organization and life. And so I got so much out of it. And that's really what motivated me I wanted to have you on my podcast, and I wanted to get involved and get my son into Green Ivy because this whole philosophy. So, so what are some, just maybe a couple of things like your takeaways, if when you speak to parents, what are some of the main ideas that you want them to understand about kind of social media and habits and what you're trying to help kids who come to you with?
Sure. So one of the things is that parents often, we need to step back and realize this has all really changed so quickly, right? And so as parents, we often don't understand the new language of social media, and parents and educators, because so much has changed even over the 5 years that I was working on this book, because, social media changed so much. Like when I first was, got the book deal, Yik Yak, Secret, Whisper, all these things were popular that aren't being used today. Ask FM still exists, but not used today in the same way. And so Snapchat, Instagram, Fortnite, all these things are now in the lexicon for kids today. And so for parents to really step back and understand, this has really changed so quickly. So imagine how your kid is trying to navigate this new world. The other piece is that adults themselves are dealing with these very same issues. Oftentimes when I visit schools, I'll ask kids, how many of you have know an adult who's struggling with problematic overuse of a phone? And all these kids will raise their hand and they'll yell, my mother. But really, it's that adults are dealing with the same issues because smartphones only been around since 2008. So instead of coming from a place of fear, anger, and frustration, which a lot of parents do by default, like you're angry that your kid's on their phone, you're angry that their kid's on their screen, is to come from a place of empathy, compassion, and understanding of that this is really hard. There's a lot of ways that the engagement and feedback loop can feel very addicting. And helping kids find daily and weekly detox times is critical, and being consistent about that and having the conversations before kids get the phone or before, and being very consistent. And there are tools that can help you be consistent. Because a lot of times parents are like, I'm just really tired, and I get it. But I'm like, well, there are apps you can actually use to turn off certain social media on your kids' phones after a certain hour. Or there's different things you can do to do that, like to check out. Parents can check out Circle by Disney, and I'll think of the other one. But
that's so funny. I don't know. Yeah. Do you know Christine Carter? She writes she lives up near you. She's written several books, including Raising Happiness. But I was interviewing her, and she mentioned Circle by Disney too as a really great. It really like monitors all the devices and how much they've been on different apps, and it also can turn off.
Turn it off. Yeah.
I think that's really good. And you said there was another one.
There was another one, and I will think of it. And it's funny that my brain is just not working right now. But they, our Pact. Sorry, our Pact. And it's a app that you can use again to go through and turn things off or give people a certain amount of time every day, because kids need this structure. And a lot of times people say to me, I really kind of wish my mom would take my phone away at night, because then I wouldn't have to say that, it's very hard for them at that age when they're tweens and teens to deal with the social pressure. They're so relational, their relationships matter, they care what people think about them, but they also want to be off. And they don't feel like they can, and they don't feel like they have permission to. And so parents really have to be the person. And sometimes kids will get mad at you, but really the general tone is that they appreciate it. And the story I give is, I did a book trailer where I interviewed my own students for social media wellness, and you can go on YouTube and search social media wellness and find it. And one of the girls I interviewed, she had been getting into an argument with her mom almost every night about the phone use. And about 25 minutes into us taping, she says, I really should just give my mom my phone at night. It would help me get so much better sleep. And we didn't use that clip in the video that's like 3 minutes long, but I sent it to her mother, because I was like, this is the kind of thing that kids don't want to admit, that they need help with regulating. And so the three S's that I talk about in the book are healthy socialization, effective self-regulation, and overall safety. So that means social, emotional, and physical safety. And the reason I use those three S's is that I knew that we needed a framework to talk to people whether or not we were talking about online or in real life experiences, because they're far more intertwined than kids have been led to believe, right? A lot of times we say, oh, you're online, you're in real life. They're not, they're different. You can try out a new identity, you can do different things. But we know that if you get a mean comment said to you, or someone's rude, or they post a photo or a video of you, it affects how you show up at school or in life with others. And so we need to help kids understand that decisions matter in a way that they can be intentional and feel empowered to make really good choices. And those choices might be to opt in of certain experiences and then opt out of others. And that's what I've been, I've been traveling around this last year. I've been to over 35 cities visiting schools across America. And that's really what we've been talking about. And at a middle school in Joplin, Missouri, like 2 weeks ago, this 8th grade boy went up to his mother after the presentation. He said, she really made me think. Like, she didn't tell me not to use anything. She just made me think about what I was, what the choices I was making. And that's my goal. It's like to build intrinsic motivation for kids to make better choices, whether or not you or I or anyone else is watching them, because they're going to become adults that need to make better choices based on their own value system, based on their daily habits, and those daily habits being a reflection of their values.
Oh, that is so well said. Well, hopefully all of us can come hear you speak in person and have our kids hear you speak too, because even we were talking before we started recording and just about how valuable it is to get input from other adults into our kids. Sure. And so, educators, when you talk to educators and they can pass along these messages to kids, or even like at our camp, the camp counselors, they share this message with kids about how they're enjoying the break from technology and their screens. And so it becomes kind of a badge of honor for our campers. A lot of them will post a message before they leave saying, I'm going to be off media for 2 weeks. Write me a letter. And they put their address at camp. And I love that, because it's that thing, you need to let your friends know you're not going to be responding. So they get off the hook. They get themselves off the hook by posting a message, going offline for a couple weeks. And, they come back and they discover that they actually sometimes don't want to be on as much. They realize that they enjoy the break. And so, like you say, it is really difficult, but it's really important to have these breaks just as part of your family. And parents need to take them too, because our kids aren't going to learn. Like if we want them to plug their phone in, like I'm the same way. I'm like, I plug my phone into the office. You guys plug your phones in here too for the night. We all keep them there. We're just doing the same thing because I need it too. I'm going to sleep better. We're all going to do that. So I think it also comes down to parents. Somebody was telling me a story about a parent asking someone, well, how do you get your kid to read? And then they asked, well, do you read? They said, no. It's like, if your kids don't see you reading, they're not going to, it's not going to be a habit or something that they'll necessarily want to do. Well, Ana, this has been so terrific. I could talk to you for hours, but I know I've already kept you for so long, but I loved your book. No, really want to encourage parents to get it. I'm going to link in the show notes to the YouTube video you mentioned, to all three of the books that you've written, and also to Green Ivy and the work you do there. Yeah. I really think, I know that my listeners would love to kind of get more of your resources, because you have so much. Yeah.
And one thing to mention is, also, if you can link to the website, my website, because the personal website also has, under each book, has like reading resources and free downloads that are related to implementing the things. Because one thing I'll say is, about all my books is, it's really solutions oriented about giving you practical tools. So we created handouts based on that you can then print out. So just as another resource for your listeners. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh. This was so much fun. Thank you so much, Ana. And we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. I'm so happy to be connected with Ana and all of the great work she is doing with preteens and high school kids. I'm now halfway through The Myth of the Perfect Girl, and we'll definitely need to do another podcast episode with her about that book, because I'm finding it very helpful with our campers at camp this summer. For more information about this episode and links to Anna's website, Green Ivy Consulting, and all the books and different things we talked about, visit my website at sunshine-parenting.com and search for episode 45. I'll leave you with a quote by Anna from her book, Social Media Wellness, Helping Tweens and Teens Thrive in an Unbalanced Digital World. There is a big difference between receiving a smiley-faced emoji and having a friend look into your eyes and say, "Thank you so much for all your help. I appreciate you." There's a certain beauty to the in-person, fully present conversation that is now seemingly becoming a lost art and needs to be intentionally rediscovered.
This podcast is a proud member of Parents on Demand, a network of high-quality shows for families just like yours. Download our free network app on Apple and Android and listen to your favorite episodes on the go.